My name's Carrington, and as Matt just said, I lead our mobile advertising sales strategy for Europe. I've been at Google for about 7 years, but I've only been in the mobile space for 6 months. I decided to move to the mobile space from the desktop business for a number of reasons. The first reason is that I see the mobile phone as a must-have device. It's the kind of iconic thing that everybody wants at this moment in time. And as we just heard some of the app usage earlier, for me it's the modern-day Swiss Army knife. I take mine everywhere with me. I do the emails, I check work documents, I check weather reports, I book tables at restaurants, I use it as a calculator, as a notepad, and as Iqbal talked earlier as well, I also use the killer app of the phone every now and again as well. Interestingly, I think I use my phone for emails more than I do for the original intention of using it as a phone. So I think, you know, it's the must-have device and everybody really, really wants one, and you take it everywhere with you. But the thing that really excited me about the mobile space was just the pace of change that we were seeing. For me, it's very interesting that there's around 4 billion phones in the world today already. The mobile phone overtook the telephone in terms of fixed onlines in 2002, television in 2003, credit cards in 2004, and even the radio in 2008. And it's very, very quickly become integrated into our modern lives. Like other forms of media, we had the exponential growth, but it took a much shorter period of time. Radio took about 36, 37 years to reach 50 million unique users. TV around 16 years, the web less time than that. And one type of smartphone, the actual iPhone, took 3 years just to reach 50 million unique users. And when you consider that there's 4 billion phones in today's world, the first billion, it took 14 years to sell that first billion. But the last billion, the fourth billion, it took less than a year for 1 billion phones to be sold around the world. And it's that pace of change that is really frightening and presents a lot of opportunities to a lot of different people. Already, there's 24% of people in the UK have a smartphone. They can connect to the web, access their emails, look for your products and services any time of the day or night when they've got that with them. That means there's around 14 million people today accessing the web. And I just want to take a step back and refer to Iqbal's presentation when he talked about Moore's Law. For me, the example I like to give is that today an iPhone is a very powerful device and costs around £400 and fits into your pocket no problem at all. If you were to build that same device in the 1970s, it would cost $1 billion to produce and would be the size of a house. And that is just Moore's laws in progress. And it's only going to get smaller and more powerful and even, you know, more of a must-have device for you. We're seeing that around 23% of all the time today spent on the web is via a mobile device. Some sites like Twitter and Facebook, more people spend time on those sites via a mobile phone than they do via a desktop. And again, this is only going to get bigger as well. It's around 32 minutes per day that people are using their mobile phone to connect to the web. So this pace of change is happening really, really quickly. And I want to give you a few examples of how much people love their phones. You've got Philippa in London, who would rather give up a body part than give up her mobile phone. And at the other end of the scale, you've got President Obama, who just had to physically have his BlackBerry prized out of his hands when he entered the White House. He had to do that for security reasons. People love their phones, as I've said, and I think sometimes people may love their phone a little bit too often. For me, I'm not sure how this works, and I don't want to dwell on it too long, but it's an interesting proposition. So this pace of change is happening really, really quickly. But for me, not all businesses are keeping up with this demand. And it reminds me, as Matt mentioned earlier, that the pace of change is happening so quickly. It's a little bit like the desktop era or the web era in the early noughties. I joined Google in 2003, and back then, many CEOs did not believe that people would buy credit cards, TV, holidays, flights, whatever it was. Many CEOs did not believe that you would buy that over the web. They just pretty much thought it was for their teenage sons and daughters, and there'd be no commercial value to it at all. Back then, the actual value of m-commerce was quite small, but as you can see here, it's grown to phenomenally quickly. It's grown by 2,300% to $251 billion. Now, will mobile do the same? Is your business being left behind? I just want to ask a couple of questions and see what people think. So, first of all, if you could raise your hand if you've bought something on the web via your mobile device. Okay, that's about 70% of the audience. That's pretty good. Hands up if you bought something over the value of £50 on your mobile device. Okay, that's about 40% of the audience. Hands up if you've got a website for the company you work for that is mobile ready, it's optimized for mobile. Okay, that's pretty good. That's about 15% of today's audience. I'm very impressed with that. Statistically, there's around 3% of the websites around the world have actually got a mobile-ready version of there. But you can see the disconnect here. About 50–60% of people have bought a big-ticket item over their mobile phone, but only about 15–20% of people make it easy for people to do so. They have a mobile-ready website that allows people to navigate around their site and buy things on a small device. And that's what we want to try and change. It's something you can change today, and that's what we want to give you the tools to do. So what do these 4 things have in common? For me, I was very surprised to learn that all 4 of these items were bought via a mobile device on the eBay platform. It happened in Q4 2009, where eBay saw a sale every 2 seconds from a mobile device on their website. And I was staggered by that. We've actually got someone from eBay in the audience today, and I'm very interested to ask him what his prediction is for how many sales they're going to make in Q4 2010 from a mobile device. Is it going to be 1 every second? Is it going to be 10 every second? But we know that the curve is getting bigger and bigger all the time. Additionally, Amazon have had a lot of success in the mobile space as well. They've done around 4 or 5% of their total sales are coming from a mobile device, and that equates to about $1 billion worth of revenue already. And the final example I want to give you is Paddy Power, where about 10% of all their sales are coming from people using a mobile device. Now, it doesn't surprise me that those 3 companies I've just talked about there, they're all web companies. They all spotted the opportunity of the web back in the day, and very quickly they're spotting the opportunity of the mobile space, and have set their business up in a way to capitalize on that. And again, that kind of just shows the disparity between how many people have got a mobile-ready website out there today. It's not just mobile commerce that mobile phones are going to be used for as well, though. There's so many other advantages to it. This is an example from the airline industry. If you go to some of the international airports around the world, you can see companies like Lufthansa. They won't actually give you a boarding card unless you ask for one. They'll actually text you the QR code to your phone, and then you just walk along and you just scan it in there, and there's no chance of you losing your boarding card, and it's not bad for the environment either because you're saving paper. So there's always examples like this. The next example is about QR codes. Now, Matt mentioned it earlier. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in the presentation as well, about the competition where we've got some fantastic prizes to give away by using QR codes. But this example was for Calvin Klein. They bought some very expensive real estate in New York, and they could have put up a model there, some very attractive models wearing a pair of their jeans or one of their tops, but they decided to use a QR code. And the reason why they did that is they wanted to connect with the younger generation, and they knew that the younger generation have their mobile phone with them. They're aware of what QR codes were. They'd also produced this video that was a bit too raunchy to be shown on TV. So if you scan the QR code by holding your phone up to it and using your barcode scanner, then you get taken to a destination where they actually have the full raunchy video, the uncensored video as it says here, and people can watch it and enjoy it and give feedback and contribute to it as well. And it was very, very successful for them. The final example is NFC, which is near-field communication. It works very much like an Oyster card. So instead of touching your Oyster card in to get on the tube, you'll just touch your mobile phone. And we're seeing that happening in places like South Korea already, where to pay for your underground journey, you use your phone. If you're a kid going to school or a teacher going to school, you don't have to sit and take register anymore. You just put your mobile phone over a scanner, and the school knows that you're there. And this is going to become a lot more prevalent, and it's something that a lot of companies are working on at this moment in time. Because of the love that people have for their mobile phones, there's also a great opportunity to have really engaging, an engaging method to communicate with your potential customers. The example here is Axe. We know it as Lynx in the UK, but pretty much everywhere else around the world it's known as Axe. And essentially their target audience is 16 to 25-year-old males. They did a lot of research and worked out how could they use the mobile phone as a mechanism to communicate with their target audience. And they thought, well, a lot of people use their phone as an alarm clock, around 80% of people in Korea. So what they did is they built an app. And because they're targeting 16 to 25-year-olds, what they did is that you download the app, which is an alarm clock, and you can choose the woman who appears on the screen to wake you up, and there's a choice of 24 women. And then you can actually choose the woman who, that woman actually then gives you a call in the morning. You set your alarm for 7 o'clock, your phone will ring, you answer it, and you've got a woman saying, "Hey Ian, time to get up." And if you choose a different woman, it's, "Hey lazy bones, get up out of bed now." I haven't got this app myself, I'm paraphrasing, honest. But it's a great way to build that engagement to an audience that they know are going to be interested in seeing it. Location is also going to be really big, and it's one of the big bets that Google is making as well. A third of all queries that we see on mobile devices have a local intent. And I think that just kind of shows that people are very interested in finding information that's very near to them at that moment in time. Mobile phones also have GPSs, so there's an opportunity there for advertisers to know where when a user is near one of their stores and to start sending them coupons or promotion material. So maybe they could get a 10% discount off a restaurant or 25% discount off a pair of jeans. But we think this is going to become very, very prevalent. A lot of people in my generation and older, we don't feel very comfortable about giving our location on phones. But a lot of the younger generation have no problem about doing that, and I'm sure that we won't in future times as well. This is a picture of me on my wedding day with my niece and nephew, and I just wanted to demonstrate how much people love phones. I take mine everywhere with me. I can entertain my niece and nephew with it. I have it with me at all times, and I think there's a real opportunity for advertisers to play on that love and the affinity that people have for their mobile phones. And at the moment, I'm not seeing a lot of this. What we are seeing a lot of is that people love to search. In the UK, we're seeing 400% year-on-year growth from queries. And that's not just any query, that's commercial queries as well that are relevant to your business. So people are loving to search. And we see this when we analyze the data between smartphones and feature phones, where we find that when people have got an iPhone or an Android phone or some kind of smartphone, we see 50 times more searches than we do from the other types of phones. And additionally, 50% of people who connect to their mobile web will start with a search. So obviously we're very happy about that because we're in the search business, and we can apply the same kind of science to the desktop search business, and we'll apply that to the mobile search business as well. So all of this means that it's only going to get bigger. This year, 2009, there was 14 million people accessing the mobile web. By the end of this year, it's going to be 20 million people. By the end of next year, it's going to be even bigger than that as well, as this pace just continues to grow all the time. Will we see the same kind of growth in the m-commerce space as we did in the desktop space? At the moment, it's 500 million, but within 4 years, it's going to grow by 400% to 2.8 billion pounds. So it's getting there, but we're at this embryonic stage. It's very nascent, but there's an opportunity for businesses to capture this market by working with us and other companies in this space. So at the moment, whenever I leave my home, I have to go, keys, wallet, mobile phone. I've got it all, I can leave the house. How quickly did the mobile phone come into that, to that routine that you have? Very, very fast, I imagine, for most people. How quickly will the routine change where it's just mobile phone? You don't need to take your keys, you don't need to take your wallet with you going forwards. And I think that's something we're definitely going to see in our generation. I imagine it's something we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years. So what can businesses do? Everyone knows that mobile phones are prevalent, everyone's using them. We've had a few false dawns of mobile advertising in the mobile web space, but because of smartphones, because you can access the web and do whatever you want to do on a desktop, you can do that on a mobile phone, it is going to get big. So what can consumers do? Well, we've developed this framework at Google. It's a very simple framework, and we think that it can apply to a lot of businesses here. It's something that we use for ourselves. So we've developed this thing called the 4 Bs, and the first one is be clear. Now, we've made a few comparisons to desktop earlier on in the presentation. I think back in the day when people first started getting involved in search advertising or digital advertising, they were put down in the basement. They weren't allowed to talk to the other people in marketing who did the cool stuff like TV and radio and outdoor. Don't let mobile be the same, and give it to the grown-ups in the marketing organization and be very, very clear about what your strategy is. Is it about having people come and buy things on your website? Is it about engaging people with apps? Is it about brochure downloads? Be very clear what your strategy is and treat it like any other medium that's out there. And once you've been very clear about what your strategy is, it's very, very important to be ready for when people come. So I just want to give you an example of a site that I think is very good and works very, very well for me. So if we could just go to the overhead projector. Oh, fantastic. So this is the Amazon site. I get there by typing it into the browser or via a search engine or whatever way it is through one of my bookmarks. And this is the screen that I'm presented with. Now, their typical site, desktop site, has lots and lots of product information there, lots and lots of links on there. But they know as a mobile user, I'm going to find that very confusing. So they tailor their site accordingly to me. It already knows who I am, so it says, welcome me in. It gives me some recommendations. It's a bit embarrassing that I've only got sci-fi books as my recommendations. I wish it was something a bit more interesting. But you can see that they're quite large. And if I want to click on one of them, I don't have fat finger problem. I can just click on it straight away, and it takes me to that information. If I then want to buy something, it's just very easy. I click again, and it's there. And what they do is they don't have complicated forms. Whenever you click a link, it's a very big link. It's a big touchpad. If it's a menu, when I have to choose something, it's not like I have to type it in. They give me a choice with a drop-down menu. I think it's so important to have that kind of site. We call this kind of site running on rails. And the reason for that is that I just scroll up and down, and all the information's there. I don't have to scroll left or right or do anything there, because I know that's very difficult on a mobile phone. So there should be more sites running on rails. Like I say, I was very happy to hear there's about 10–15% of people who have that kind of site in the audience today, but there's a big opportunity in a lot of companies that don't have that. So if we could just go back to the presentation again. A mobile site might not be the right thing for you to do. A lot of people say to me, oh, we're going to build an iPhone app. And I say, well, why are you doing that? And they often don't give me a real kind of strategy as to why they're doing that. They often say, well, I love my iPhone, I go there all the time, or everyone else is building an iPhone app. And that's not necessarily the right thing to do. It's not necessarily the wrong thing to do either. It should be defined in what your be clear strategy is about what kind of site you build. But the example I give between apps and the website is that often the apps are about brand engagement, like the alarm clock we saw earlier, or it's about client retention. The mobile web space is about new customer acquisition. It's about commerce. And the example I like to give is with the Ash Cloud. These are the kind of increasing queries for both mobile and desktop we saw when the Ash Cloud was happening. And essentially, if you're stuck in an airport and you want to get the next flight home, you're not going to go to the iTunes store and download an app and install it on your phone and then search within the app and book a flight. You just want that information as quickly as possible, and you're going to go straight to the web, and you're going to go ahead and buy something from the web, e.g. the next flight to take you home. So like I say, we see the apps as retention and engagement, mobile web space as commerce. So it's up to you which one you want to do, and it depends on your strategy, but both should have an option on there. In case you're interested as well, the app space and the mobile web space are growing at pretty much the same rate. We're seeing, things double every year, and they're growing at exactly the same rate. So it's not like one's overtaking the other. And I think we've got Nick from Autotrader who's going to give his insights into what consumers do on an app and what consumers do on the web space when they come to the Autotrader site. The next example is Be Found. And what we mean by this is that when people are looking for your goods and services, make sure you're optimized for mobile. And if there's one thing you could take away from today's presentation, it would be to optimize for mobile. Here's an example of some of the advertising options that we have. I'm only going to talk about the top left-hand one, which is when someone types in Marks & Spencer's onto Google on their mobile phone, that's the advert they see. And the very interesting thing for this is that it says mobile in the creative. Now that works very well for me as a user, because again, it's like the Amazon example. I know I'm going to have a bad experience if I just go to their normal site, but they know I'm on a mobile phone, so I'm going to be much more likely to click on that because I'm going to be taken through to a site that's going to be optimized for the mobile device. And I think that's one thing that everyone can do today. There's other advertising opportunities like click-to-call and hyper-local and click-to-download as well. And we can talk about these I'll happily talk about these with you at the break, or my team can talk about them as well. But that search business, many of you are appearing on these search terms already, but not being optimized for mobile. And what we would like to suggest to people to do is to actually have separated out campaigns. You have one campaign in your AdWords interface targeting desktop, and you have one campaign targeting mobile. Now, we don't expect you guys to do this yourself, obviously, but it would be really good for you to go back to your office and challenge the people in your marketing team, or challenge the mobile guy. What are we doing to optimize for mobile today? Now, there's a lot of efficiencies if you do optimize for mobile. We see a 43% increase in conversion rate from mobile campaigns compared to desktop campaigns. Again, in the case studies, we're going to hear about some of the immediacy and distressed nature of the purchases that we have on mobile phones, but that's a massive increase. If you could increase your conversion rate by 43% on your desktop business, you'd do it tomorrow. At the moment, mobile may be 5% or 10% of your business like it is with Amazon, but tomorrow it's going to be much bigger than that, so start getting the learnings in today. We also see increases in click-through rates, and again, we see a 15% reduction in cost per acquisitions as well. So there's a lot of benefits in doing that. And then the final B that we have is be smart. And essentially what we mean by this is just don't ignore the mobile opportunity. Apply the same science and rigor to your mobile business as you do to the desktop business. Whenever you've got teams of people back in your office who analyze every single piece of traffic who come to your website. They bid accordingly on Google or Yahoo or Microsoft or any other digital platform out there as well. But at the moment, people aren't doing that for mobile, and we encourage people to do that. So be smart, look at the data, see what people are looking for on your site via a mobile phone. That data will then determine to you what kind of products you should display on your mobile website. If you take people like Interflora, for example, they have about 50 different types of flowers on their homepage, but on the mobile web page they only have 3 types of flowers, because they know that a lot of blokes who are buying flowers on Mother's Day or Valentine's Day only know roses, chrysanthemums, and probably lilies or something like that, so they don't bother having more types of flowers on there. Use that data you've got today to determine what your website should look like. So just to summarize the 4 Bs and what you should be doing today, be clear. Develop your web strategy. Be ready for when people come to your website. Is it a landing page? Is it an app? Is it a full-blown m-commerce website? Be found, optimize your campaigns, and be smart, understand the data. I want to say all of that again, but I'm not. I'm just going to say that the mobile space is getting bigger, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as more people use it as well.